Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 3 of the Gold Club World Cup, a Hearthstone tournament hosted in China featuring Chinese teams and international teams competing in both standard and battlegrounds. My name is Gia, and joining me for the first 2 rounds of actions yet again is Language Hacker. Anything you're particularly hyped for today, Hacker? Yep, sorry if you could repeat that for the benefit of our audience, Hacker. I can definitely hear you. Yeah. Yes, indeed. The Murloc lobby is something I also want to see because it is very, very powerful. But of course, for today, it's not just some Battlegrounds action, but also constructed. We are entering onto the third day of this competition. So already we've had 2 days of battlegrounds and constructed, where in the first 2 days of construct we had 2 separate groups competing to see who would end up in the upper bracket, because it is a double elimination bracket per group. So while we get to hear from the lovely Chinese commentators as well over in the English stream, we will be talking over this broadcast. They have a lot of very cool graphics going on there, but we will do our best to help you guys walk through what's actually going on from day to day. So every day we will be starting with the Battlegrounds, 2 lobbies, one for each day will be dedicated to a particular group. There's Group A and Group B. The Group A teams featured are FC Barcelona, Liquid, VK, and LP. And over in Group B, there's T1, G2, SN, and World Elite. So each group has already had 1 day of action, and we're moving on now to the second phase of Group A. For Battlegrounds, the way that you earn points is to, of course, place higher in the lobby. Whereas there are 8 players in every single lobby, 2 per team, you get a rising amount of points distributed relatively equally the better you place in a battlegrounds lobby, except for first place you get 9 points instead of 8, and then it goes down 7 points for second place, 6 for third place, so on and so forth. And because we've already had these 2 days of action, we already know who's kind of in the lead for Group A, and in particular it was Team VK, because on day 1 we had VK Diana take the first place in both of the lobbies. And we can see here in our group stages for constructed, at least, it is a double elimination bracket. And we do have, of course, elimination stages as well. And we can see right there, LHS is the format for constructed. It's not Conquest, which you might be used to seeing if you tune into Hearthstone esports, but they do things a little bit differently in China. And not only is it just LHS, it's also 10 classes represented. In Battlegrounds, each team, as you can see, sends out 2 of its players. So in every lobby, you will have 1 ally. And you can see that point distribution I was just talking about a while ago. 9 points all the way down to 1. So there's a little extra incentive to go for that first place. And then to earn points, you do get the sum of the 2 members in your team per lobby. For the grand final played out on the last couple days of the tournament, it will just be a couple teams remaining. And then what these teams are playing for, of course, is pretty decent prize pool, if I say so myself, 690,000 yuan, which is roughly $100,000. And a little under half of that will be going to the winning team. So there's a lot on the line here, but I have to say it's not just the money, but also the national pride involved. Because if you've been watching any of these intro videos, I'm sure that the Chinese region has had a lot to prove in the earlier years of Hearthstone, at least. But ever since VK Lion took her historic win at the Global Championship last year, I think that China has definitely been putting themselves on the map, and they're looking strong to continue that streak.
Yeah, definitely. We've been seeing some pretty strong performances from Chinese players throughout the Master Tours lately, and even in this tournament itself, we've been seeing Chinese players do very well in both constructed and battlegrounds. In battlegrounds specifically, in another group we're going to see today, VK, for example, is dominating the leaderboards for battlegrounds, 26-point lead over the competition.
Yes, VK Diana had such a dominant performance. Over in Group B, though, it's not the same story with T1 and G2 being at the top there. So Chinese players in Group B maybe have a little bit to catch up with. Over in Group A, though, our second place is Team Liquid, which us casters, we predicted them to do pretty well. So do you think that the 3-point gap is not too much for them to overcome?
Yeah, I mean it's just with two lobbies done so far, there's still four left. So I don't think a 3-point differential is going to be too much. But if they are going to be so neck and neck for the next four lobbies or so, maybe it will just be a 3-point differential between first place and second place. It's also interesting to note that in the second lobby, the point differential is much closer from the first place to the fourth place. So maybe there is a much closer skill gap between those teams in Group B.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Especially, we have to mention for FCB, it was not looking so great for them there with only 8 points earned so far. I did hear from around the grapevine that were maybe a little bit more recent to pick up Battlegrounds compared to some of the other players, but they have been putting in the work to learn it with the little time that they had available. In their team, those two representatives are also playing Constructed, so having to divide their attention, would you say that's a big disadvantage, Hacker?
Definitely, especially when we're talking about the constructed format that we have here, where there's a 10 class submission where there's a multiple ban phases, and then even with the remaining classes, you still have a lot of options with what you're left to pick, since you only have to win 3 matches with 6 available classes. So between preparing for that and trying to get caught up to speed on Battlegrounds, compared to some of the other players who've been playing for months and months and just throwing hours at the game, it makes sense that it'd be difficult for these players to try and juggle both things at once.
Right. And over for Team VK, we can take a look at their roster there. Lion, of course, one of the most famous players, but Diana definitely carried for Battlegrounds so far. But in TL, everywhere you look, this is a big name. Particularly Show and Witty Bill are also just have been streaming just so much Battlegrounds. They have great MMR, and the constructed team looks great too. Kind of makes you wonder why Team Liquid actually fell down in the first constructed match they had.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, again, with the format being so complicated, it might be difficult to actually go over all the possible scenarios. If you actually try to map out how many different things can happen, we get into like some crazy permutations. So I'm sure that even with a lot of practice, it might not be quite as simple as, just play a good game of Hearthstone. There's a lot of mind games in terms of queuing. It's also last year's standing, so it gets a little bit more complicated in terms of what needs to be submitted and how you need to kind of play the games and pick your tech cards.
That's right. And over in the last team from LP, you might have noticed that they have 5 members, but all of them are assigned to Battlegrounds because not every team involved in GCWC has reps for both Constructed and Battlegrounds. For the Chinese teams, at least, the way they qualified to GCWC was through a previous tournament called the Gold Team Championship, where the top 4 placing teams in either Constructed or Battlegrounds would move on here. So there were some teams that only made top 4 in one of those events, and that's why we have LP present, for example. X-Hope, probably the biggest name in that team. And if I recall the interviews leading up to this, he didn't feel particularly confident about their performance. But I think LP also is within shooting range. They were just points below Team Liquid. So with 4 more lobbies to go for Group A, do you think that LP also has a shot in this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with first place awarding 9 points, it's quite literally anyone's game. If with a couple of good lobbies in a row, I think any of these teams could just bring it back and retake first place in this group.
That's right. It kind of makes you wonder, though, if you need all 5 players for Battlegrounds. Do you think that they'll be making sure that each one gets to play at least one lobby, or will they be defaulting onto their highest MMR players every single time, and some of them are just perhaps stand-ins if somebody gets an unfortunate accident? I don't know why you would need that many.
Perhaps, I'm not sure. Maybe it lends itself to sort of fatigue. Maybe playing for under high stress over long periods of time can kind of start affecting players. I know people who are involved in master tours can definitely tell you that after a long day or a few days of competition, it starts to get a little fatigued. So maybe they have people just swapping out every couple of days.
Yeah, and for Battlegrounds, you guys might be wondering what the exact rule set for this is because there have been very few high-level competitive events for Battlegrounds so far, as the game is still technically in beta. But for this format, as we mentioned, there would be 2 members per team per lobby, and each lobby would have 4 teams. But the most important thing there is that they're not allowed to communicate with each other. So, Hacker, do you feel like if you're running into your teammate, if you're not allowed to communicate, would you be inclined to go for a greedy route, like level where you say you might normally wouldn't?
Perhaps they can use emotes, but it's kind of hard to get communication across with emotes. There's some stuff you can do if you know you're up against your teammate, and we saw a little bit of this. I think the prior 2 days when teammates ended up facing each other, they tried to make their boards a little bit weaker, or maybe change the positioning to be a little weaker, so that no matter who wins, that the loser between them would take less damage ultimately, which would benefit the team in general. In terms of trying to be greedier and level up, I think that's definitely a possibility, but it might be difficult to actually communicate that you guys want to do that. It will depend a lot on what turn you actually face each other, because sometimes it's not a turn where you can actually level pretty safely. Even if you do get that bump in Tavern tier, you might be generally too weak to be able to survive past the round that you are leveling up with your teammate.
Indeed. And we have to talk about, of course, the players that we are most likely to watch out for when we do get into Battlegrounds. From Team LP, I guess they're the team that we can do the least justice to, at least in terms of our knowledge of the Chinese scene. But I'm told that LPPF actually has 14,270 MMR, and that is definitely in the things. For anybody who's not really familiar with the MMR system in Battlegrounds, could you give us a rundown of what number starts to get you a lot of credibility?
If I can remember some of the statistics, I believe going up towards 9, 10K will already get you down to like the top 1% of players, and if not even like more elite than that, maybe even fractions of a percent at that point. But to get to 14K, we're literally talking about the best, 20 to 25 players, maybe 30 players in the world, depending on how many people have managed to achieve that score. Because to climb ranks that much, to get to 14K, generally when you're in top 4 of a lobby, you gain some points, some MMR. But the higher up you get, you have to place even higher, maybe even top 3 or top 2 to get consistent, to get consistently climb. So to get to 14K, you have to be consistently finishing top 3, not only top 4, which makes it even more difficult for players to get that high.
Indeed, and it looks like we're starting off the action a little bit sooner today, which I'm really happy about. Witty Bill on the Deathwing. Beasts are not banned in the lobby. It's Murlocs banned, so your wish might be coming true today, Hacker. Of these choices, though, nothing that particularly Deathwing wants to get. You'd rather have tokens.
Yep, definitely. It looks like he's going to go for the Hyena, which can make sense if he ends up finding an Alley Cat token that he wants to play, because it'll help his board grow a little bit. And even if he wants to pick some other minions later on, like Infested Wolf or Rat Pack, it will help the Hyena scale, whereas the Fiendish Servant isn't as useful as Deathwing.
And I'm very glad that we're landing on Kimmy's point of view here, because he's on the Maleficent Mana Storm, which actually really underperformed for Sixo the other day. And to draw a comparison, there's also a Jiraxis in the lobby. So there's 2 heroes already that are kind of lending themselves to a particular minion type. Maleficent with the mechs, and of course Jiraxis for demons.
Yeah, generally we see people going for tempo-heavy heroes, heroes like Kel'Thas that have a built-in buff to some of the minions they buy. But in a lobby like this, where we see Murlocs being out, it does make way for some of these different minion-type strategies, whether it be Jiraxis, whether it be Maleficent as well.
And VK Diana, the MVP of the first day, I don't think it's any exaggeration to claim, has already picked up his Maiev, which is also one of the best all-around heroes, because hero power Imprison that lets you spend 1 coin to put a minion dormant for 2 turns, and after that you get it for +1/+1, is a great economy choice, allows you a lot for pairing. But I generally like to play Murlocs with Maiev, so I'll be interested to see how Diana takes it when Murlocs are not available.
It can still work pretty well if Diana tries to find some demons, some Wrathweavers and demons pairs, getting them together, and then slowly leveling up to 3. Because if Diana can get up to the Floating Watcher with the demons, it's a very powerful thing when Murlocs are out because the coveted Poisonous Affix cannot be put on any of the minions until Tavern Tier 6 when there is a Myexna available. So until then, demons can reign pretty supreme if they get a big early start.
That's right. And we put our eyes on both Blizes and Zim. Definitely a lot of pressure on them to kind of make up for the points that they failed to get on the first day of Battlegrounds. They have a pretty good set of all-around heroes with the Kael'thas for Blyze and the Yogg for Zim here. Actually choosing to level this early because he had that deck Swabby played. I am a little bit surprised by this. With Yogg, I generally like to hero power and just buy something on the 5 gold turn, but maybe because he was only seeing one good 2-star minion, he didn't think it was it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with Yogg and his hero power being 2 mana to basically give you a minion from the from Bob's Tavern, on 5 gold, you tend to just hero power and pick up a minion. But if the minions are lackluster and given the right circumstances where Dex Swabby was picked up, we see him leveling up a bit faster to maybe get access to the Tavern Tier 3 minions. Having 6 gold and being on Tavern Tier 3 means you can still roll once if you get a bad roll, hero power, and buy something as well. So this gives him a bit of a hedge, in a sense, for leveling early. Generally, when you level early, you just see one board and you have to buy 2 units on Tavern Tier 3. So if you get some bad minions there, you're kind of out of luck. I think I like the option he went for, even though it is a little bit greedy.
Well, we'll see if that pays off for him. For PF, though, on the Eudora, he's completed his dig, but is holding on to the Dex Swabby for now. I can only imagine he's running up into a teammate, but we'll get confirmation on that a little bit later.
It's also possible he's holding out for a Tavern Tier 5 minion, because
Wow.
if he were to hold this back and try to make it himself weaker against his teammate, he could still play the Dex Swabby. But I think this way it does give him the option to take the Tavern Tier 5 minion. He takes a bit of health for doing this, but I think it might be a pretty good option if he gets. There's a lot of build-defining minions on 5. Brand Bronzebeard can get you a good start. Lightfang Enforcer, for example, can get you a Menagerie start, especially in a Murloc-less lobby.
And he did end up having that option for the Lightfang, but because he only had a pirate and a very low value beast, he instead went for the tempo option of the Annihilan Battlemaster. And it was indeed his teammate that he ran up against here. And next to Eagle-Eyed Lorinda, I do think that they were actually communicating with emotes there, and possibly a good signal to hold off on all of your resources and go for an early level, perhaps. For Witty Bill, though, already picked up a nice Infested Wolf pair there. Not hit the Rat Pack, which you ideally want with Deathwing, but already has the beginnings of a pretty good beast game.
Yeah, definitely. And the Hyena that he picked up on turn 1 kind of shows what he had in mind, thinking maybe he'll pick up some other beast to actually make that scale instead of picking up the Fiendish Serpent. We see Show on the other screen.
Yeah, just a pretty good all-around board. Spawn of N'Zoth, one of the best 2-star options no matter what comp you're going for. The other one being Arcane Cannon, that I think were added into the pool to make sure that there are less whiffs that you can get onto the tier 2. But at this moment, I don't think all that sad to be losing a little bit of health here. Or sorry, he actually...
No, with the attack into the Spawn of N'Zoth, it actually gave him the draw there. Made his board strong enough to be able to trade with the rest of his opponent's board.
Bill, Macaw shows up, but it's not necessarily something you want to get because of the board space issues. Macaw previously was very good with Goldjin, but now that it's been nerfed to 6 stars, it's much more difficult to get that comp online though. But because he's only going to start the next combat with 5 minions, he says, I might as well get the Macaw and the 2 free tokens.
Yeah, he takes an early level here on 8 gold. Generally, people tend to level up on turn 9, where you can spend on the 9 gold turn, where you can spend 6 gold to Tavern Tier up and then buy an extra minion. But realizing at 40 health, he's in a very good spot. He still has some tokeny things going on with the beast, so he does want to try to go for the level up and get access to some of the higher Tavern Tier minions, perhaps even some more beasts like a Savannah Jaime.
And his next opponent will be Zim over here with the double Deflectobots and the reset available on his Mecharoo. Already has a pretty good mech mid-game. He also has some pirate synergy going on. Picked up that Rip Snarl Captain alongside this Dex Swabby. So he still has some flexibility as to whether he wants to take his comps more in the direction of mechs or pirates.
Yep, it's open either way right now. And with the one reset of the Mekaru, which when spawns a mech grants the deflected bots on a Divine Shield, does make him reasonably strong for this point in the game. It's still going to be not enough to take out the Deathwing's board here, but it's still not that much damage to take at this point in the game, just 7.
Yeah, it's just a scratch, especially since Hyena was previously changed to a 1-star minion, taking places with the Soralisk a couple patches ago. For Blyzes, though, he takes also a loss on his side here. Kael'thas, I think, you generally want to leverage the tempo you get from those early buffs to help you level up a bit quicker. It's not looking too great for him, but that is a Rat Pack triple available now.
Yeah, I think he ended up freezing the board the previous turn while Tavern Tiering up to 4, because he's already 4 now at the start of this turn, giving him the access to a Tavern Tier 5 minion here, with an upgraded Rat Pack, which early on is very, very powerful. If it dies last, it spawns a full board of 2/2 rats as opposed to 1/1 rats.
Oh.
So it's an 8/8 death, and the Hoggar. Oh my goodness, are we going to see pirates?
He could make that transition, yeah. I mean, it's not that the Rat Pack commits him onto staying on Beast. I mean, he could just keep that as a great tempo option. The Golden Rat Pack then spawns 2/2 tokens. I think we could see Blyze leverage that Pirate start to look for a good build. It would still rely on him looking for Salty Looter, but it wouldn't surprise to see him rely on Hoggar for now. For show, though, he's picked up a relatively early Razor Gore, only 3 dragons, but as long as he stays relatively healthy, and he has only lost 6 health for now, I think he can also treat that as a carry.
Yep, with Murlocs being out, dragons are still a pretty good late-game comp at this point. And especially if you can get something like an early Razor Gore to scale a bit more. Like we talked about, there's no poisons in this lobby outside of my Exton, which is not easily accessible until you get to Tavern Tier 6, or you happen to turn in a triple on Tavern Tier 5, which still is, it takes some time to get up to that. So dragons are definitely a good way to go if Sho can find maybe a couple of more supporting cards to help him get through this mid-game.
And for Witty Bill, he actually froze on a Hyena triple as well. Hardly has taken any damage, gonna win yet another lobby. So I think this Deathwing can power level and essentially try to get to that Mama Bear as soon as possible, which will really help him scale up the comp.
Yep. We see PF turning in another dig here. I don't quite see what the golden minion he received is, but we can see that he's discovering a Tavern Tier 6 minion here. All of these are pretty good options at this point in the game.
Looking at the Kalecgos, but because he's at 12 health, it is very dependent on how many immediate buffs he can get with the dragons, and he has only 1 dragon other than Kalecgos available right now.
Still thinks it's the best option. It will let him scale past what he has available this turn, but like you said, with 12 health, it's kind of dangerous because it doesn't provide as much strength as perhaps a Foe Reaper this turn would have, and even though the Foe Reaper can't scale as well as the Kalecgos can, it might keep him alive long enough for him to replace some of the weaker minions on his board. But if he does manage to survive the next couple of turns with Kalecgos on the board, he will be able to transition to a late game comp that will likely be able to get him a top finish in the lobby.
Yeah, definitely signals kind of a braver play there, but he did rein himself in by ending the comp with the buy of the Bolvar, which is definitely a tempo option that I don't expect him to see hold on to for a very long time. For Kimmy, though, already has hit quite a few golden minions, has 2 pairs, freezing for the egg pair, I have to imagine, as well. Without the Deflectobots, this comp doesn't look very threatening, but I would struggle to see using this one.
Yeah, definitely. The Divine Shields do help quite a bit at this point, since there aren't any Divine Shields on Kimmy's board. But the being able to use the Metaltooth Leapers on basically a full board of mechs is still pretty powerful, which is why I think we see this, even without Deflectobots, doing fairly well at this point in the game, despite mechs not being one of those super late game powerful comps.
Definitely underestimated the power of the Annihilant Battle Master there. I didn't realize it was at 7 attack already, so that will mean that Kimmy is able to take that win there, or sorry, the Eudora player is able to take the win, and that's huge because they can continue to scale with Kalecgos now.
Yep. Diana picking up a free dealing Gambler here, and another one frozen in the shop. Imprisoned in the shop. perhaps he's trying to set up a triple on that. Even if you don't get a triple with it, being able to spend 1 mana to take a free Dangling Gambler that you can sell back for 3 over a couple of turns does give you extra gold, basically. You're printing money.
Great choice for Econ. He picks up the Bolvar pair here, has a chance to pick up another Bronze Warden. There's starting to be some board space issues, so I like that he can do this with Maiev, where you kind of want to take a pair but don't necessarily want to give up board space, so hold on to it. With Maiev, you can take that pair and not have to give up a minion immediately. So I expect that he'll buy this Leaper and end the turn with the Bolvar on the board.
Yep, and this is one of those comps that we don't see as often in some of the other lobbies where you do have a Mech Divine Shield comp going that will not necessarily scale into late game, but can still do enough damage early to some other players that might allow you to get a top 4, top 3 in the lobby. And in some cases, if people can't stick to their late game comps, for example, where we saw Eudora pick up a Kalecgos, if Eudora dies really quickly after that and doesn't manage to transition to the Dragons, Mechs can end up being the strongest thing in the lobby. And we do see, I think, 3 separate players here having a sort of Mech Divine Shield comp available. So we'll see if we're going to be having that in our top 4.
Yeah, the Maleficent was the one that hadn't hit the Deflecto bots, I believe, but they had the Eggs and the Kaboom bots. And already, the Deathwing from Witty Bill, last time we checked in on him, he still had a bunch of other Death Rattle minions, but ever since he picked up Goldrin, he's now going on to the build that I really loved pre-nerf, and looks like it's still somewhat viable if you can level really early. The Macaws with the Goldrin have so much consistency for buffing the whole board. All he needs now is a Baron.
Yeah, it ends up doing a lot of damage too, because all of your beasts getting buffed means that they're more likely to survive. And with the high quality minions he has, or relatively high quality, the 2 Macaws and the Hydra, a lot of damage starts getting chunked out. And it looks like Zim is going to fall to W2I Bill's Deathwing.
Yeah, could be one of the lowest placements also if anyone else has died, but it looks like it is just Zim to be first knocked out, and that is really painful for FCB because they had quite a low point total to begin with. We'll see if Blyze can try and make up for that, but for now, we're seeing LPPF start to go off with the battle cries. He picked up both a Cobalt Scalebane and a Herald of Flame in the meantime, so he's got now a pretty wide board of dragons to scale with.
Yeah, and that Battle Master that you were talking about, being able to leverage demon buffs, which there aren't that many of in the game in terms of Battlecry minions. There's 2, I believe. One in Tavern Tier 2, the Nethrezim Overseer, that buffs a friendly demon +2/+2, and a Tavern Tier 3 minion, Crystal Weaver. And it looks like he happened to hit a lot of them because, as you said, a few rounds ago, the Annihilum Battle Master already had 7 attack, and now it's up to 10. So that in itself is still a threat at this point. If that survives, it deals 5 damage to the opponent.
And Diana himself has picked up a Kalecgos, probably off of the triple from his Bolvar. Only has 3 dragons to buff, but I think he's also in a transition period where I would expect him to maybe get rid of the mechs if he picks up enough good dragons. At this point, though, it's kind of an awkward spot because he's going to run up into probably the most powerful comp in the lobby at the moment, the Goldrin Beast. So if Diana dies right here, he could be getting that awful feeling of BG of just succumbing right before you get to your power turn.
Yeah, we see Show as well with Pirates. I think we saw someone else ending up with a Hog earlier. I can't quite remember who it was, but happy to see a couple of Pirates. It does look like Show isn't scaling that quickly at this point, and especially being up against Eudora right now, I don't think his board will be able to stand up to the Dragons here.
Yeah, I would have to agree. We checked in on Show, seems like many rounds ago already, where he hit that first Hogger, but it's taken him a very long time to find a second and the Salty Looter. And that Gold Grubber we saw was just played this turn, so it did not have him to get all that much scaling done, and these trades were absolutely awful at the end there. 2 dragons surviving at 1 health, but I do think it was more likely than not that Show would
I'm not sure there was an outcome that kept him alive there, honestly, yep. But yeah. Okay, well, WT by Bill. There's very few ways that he can improve here. He does have to get rid of this Alley Cat for maybe a more powerful a beast, but he might also be looking for Baron Rivendare to get double the value off of his Death Rattles. And now we do see him pick up a Hydra to likely replace the Alley Cat here.
Indeed, a second Goldrin would also not be too bad. I think his top priority, though, as you said, is Baron, and also looking for a triple on the Macaw to save him a lot of board space. There's a Baron,
there it is.
Though.
He'd have to double sell for it. I think we might see him freeze. I don't think he needs to sell off something like a Hydra here. He could get rid of the Hyena, however. The Hyena does kind of lose usefulness because there aren't that many beasts dying at this point, and it looks like he is going to go for that line. And this way he gets to keep both Hydras and get the Baron this turn.
You're right. Makes a lot of sense here. And you can see that positioning with this comp, it's ideal to only have one taunt on the far right to play around Cleaves, and that's why his Baron is not to the last attacker there. But it might look a little unintuitive that the Hydra, or at least one of them, is attacking before Goldrin, because you think, don't you want the death rattle on this before you get the Hydra to attack? But at that point, after two Macaws have attacked, I think that the Hydra will definitely be big enough to eat a lot of minions. So you'd rather get those big Hydra hits in instead of maximizing like a little bit of extra.
Yeah, definitely. I agree there. And to play around cleave there, if the taunt on the far right gets cleaved with Baron dying in the process because it was next to the taunt, it's much, much worse because your board scales a lot, literally half as much that round. So it's better to protect the Baron there by throwing the Hydra to the side.
And of course, Baron and scale, so every proc is ×2, for example. And this Hydra attack is going to be absolutely devastating for Kimmy here. It looks like he will just be dying to the Beast comp. No big surprise, though.
Yeah, definitely. At this point in the game, being able to have that much, generally we see Goldrin picked up a lot less because it's such a higher Tavern tier, but with Bill's strategy to be able to Tavern tier up with the 40 health, he's been able to keep this entire game. It let him get to this comp very, very quickly. And that's one of the powerful abilities of Deathwing's hero power. When you can just focus on picking up minions that spawn more minions, it lets you be powerful long enough with generally what are considered weaker minions in the Tavern.
And Bly's all in that combat alongside Kimmy. So now both members of FCB also in the bottom four yet again. Bill, with an option to triple the Hydra, this I've heard can be a bait for this particular comp because you would rather have two pretty good cleaves than one massive cleave a lot of the time. But with Mama Bear in hand and still able to fill up the board, I think Bill doesn't mind either way.
Yeah, I think Bill realizes the second Hydra, even though it is very powerful, it won't do as much as finding perhaps another Goldrin, because if the other comps in the lobby do manage to scale a bit more, he needs to find another way to be able to scale past what he currently has. The thing about the Beast comps, without Mama Bear, which he does now have, but with just the Goldrin, you reach a sort of upper threshold on how strong you get, because you're limited by just the double death rattle popping from the Macaw and the Goldrin. But if you can upgrade your Goldrin, that doubles how many buffs you get off of that. So I think that's what he's trying to go for now, and look forward thinking on trying to figure out how to win the lobby if other people manage to scale a bit faster.
Right. And if we're talking about discrete numbers, what can actually outscale this? Well, the first Macaw attack will give plus 16 to the board, I believe, because it's golden, and then the Baron doubles it again. So if anything in the region of higher than 30 attack, for example, can survive the Hydra, that's when things get a little bit scary for Bill. But for now, I think he's in a pretty good spot.
Yep, for sure. He's up against Jaraxxus, and even though... Oh, no, it's not big enough. I was going to say, what if the first two minions looked quite large, but based on the attacks here, it doesn't look like... it was close, but it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like Bill actually is going to lose a round yet.
Hydra was a little bit too monstrous there, and VK Diana also manages to take a win with that Divine Shield comp. We were talking about how he was going for consistency and making top four, and he's definitely achieved an admirable job of that, though. Doesn't look like he can outscale Beasts, and the difficult thing about playing versus Beast is it can be very difficult to find a tech card, but Zap Slywick is definitely the first one that comes to mind when a comp has Baron.
And we see him level here because he realizes that the only thing... He can still bounce Battle Cries and try to buff the rest of his dragons, but he realizes that that's not the most important thing right now. The most important thing is getting to 6, because to win the lobby, he does need to find exactly that Zap Slywick. And after rolling once with the Tavern tier up, he does find exactly that.
And he's going to hope that the Baron is not protected by a different minion. I actually think that the ideal comp versus as Beast is that you need a smaller taunt even. Selfless, or sorry, Rejector on the far most can mess with the target of the Zap, because text on Zap says Wind Fury, this attacks the lowest attack minion in your opponent's comp. So if there are two minions with the same amount of attack, you can sometimes win a coin flip to have your Baron survive.
Yeah, sometimes you can throw in an egg if you can I guess you can't taunt that up though without buffing its attack power. But if you're just strictly playing around Zap, you could throw in an egg in your comp on top of the taunt that you have to protect the board. But at that point, you're committing 2 minions, so generally we don't see much more than a Righteous Protector in the comp for beasts.
And it also depends on who attacks first here. The Zap does trigger before the Macaw gets its first trigger, so that's pretty huge here. It still looks to me like this will outscale the Divine Shields, though.
Yeah, WTY Bill picking up a second Goldrinn did play around the Zap a little bit here. The Baron still got sniped, and so did one of the Goldrins, but because there's a second Goldrinn as a backup, the Macaw still has something to buff. If there was only one Goldrinn and the Zap took out the Goldrinn and the Baron, I think WTY Bill would have lost this round. Not the game, because he does still have 40 health to work with, but it would have been a lost round if he didn't have the second Goldrinn.
And the very big deal there was that the Macaw survived after the first attack. So the way it interacts is that if you actually buff the Macaw, even though it dies probably ends up surviving when you apply the Goldrinn +4/+4. So the fact that it got to attack again means that Bill took the entire lobby. So now he's probably just looking for a triple on the Goldrinn or even a backup Baron. But he knows that there's a Zap there, so the tech choices of Selfless Hero, for example, might also be on his mind. Righteous Protector.
The thing is, it's very difficult. So W2I Bill did see Diana's board and realizes that it's not that easy for Diana to keep bouncing battle cries and scale. So even with Diana's board left the exact same, basically everything that went well for Diana there could have gone well. Everything that could have gone well did go well. And even in that case, W2I Bill still won the round. So I don't even think he needs to change his board too much. I think he can literally just roll and try to find another Goldrinn. Because if Diana wants to try to buff the dragons, he has to replace one of his minions. And the weakest minion technically is Zap, but Zap is still needed for the chance to snipe the Baron.
Yep.
I think it's very difficult for Diana to try and win this lobby from here. I'm not sure what he can actually try to find.
I have to agree, and there's very little change that we see to Diana's lobby in the end here, because as you mentioned, he did end up getting that good outcome of attacking first, and it still wasn't enough, so I would be very surprised to see this not becoming a perfect win, 0 damage lobby for Bill, which is very impressive in a field of players this experienced.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see how the match plays out, but having a perfect lobby at any point is still incredibly difficult to do, but doing it in a competition like this is something fierce.
Well, the Hydra did get knocked out on that second attack, but because the Macaw was still able to take a win there, or sorry, take another attack there, it will mean that Bill has the unscathed full 40 health and takes a huge amount of points for Team Liquid. 9 points for him there. Very impressive.
Yeah, and that's the first time we've seen Beasts actually come out on top in one of these lobbies, and it did happen in a Murloc-less lobby, so even though that we're going to be seeing about one minion type banned randomly every single lobby, I'm hoping that we still see a few more Murloc-less lobbies and to see what else we can kind of get involved in. We did see, as I spoke about earlier, a bunch of mech comps as well. Even though they didn't end up winning the lobby, it still got pretty far up there, especially with some people trying to throw in some Caligoses as well to try and scale it a little bit while still holding on to some of the Divine Shields.
Yeah, and the other thing I've also been pleasantly surprised to see throughout our Battlegrounds lobbies these weeks is that the perhaps top-rated heroes have not always been taking the first place, as we saw in Alex Straza get a win. We saw, I think, a Pyramid Dragon take the win, and now we're seeing Deathwing, which are consistently maybe around Tier B, Tier A heroes, but definitely not in the region of Eudora or Kael'thas or Maiev in terms of the pick rate. So I'm excited to see if we're going to continue the trend, but personally, I'm also hyped for a minion-type specific hero to maybe take a win soon, too.
Yeah, I mean, heroes with a higher pick rate that tend to, based on the stats, finish a bit higher in the lobbies are still good to pick up. But these players are showing us that no matter what hero they're kind of picking up, they can still kind of use it to the best ability to try and get as good of a placement as they can. Like you said, seeing heroes win the lobby that aren't some of these top tier hero picks are still kind of showing how well these players can do with what they've been offered.
The point breakdown actually shows us that despite Witty Bill taking the first place, because Show actually finished in seventh, they're only tied in the amount of points that they earned with LP, I believe. And then VK is only 1 point less than them in terms of the total. And that's another effect of this more even point distribution for the lobby, where if you just play for top fours consistently, that's a very solid strategy to maybe take you the win overall, even if none of your players necessarily gets a first place win. But the struggles for FCB are continuing, Hacker. I think they need to get top fours every single lobby from here on out to even have a chance now.
I think maybe even some first or second places would be in order for that to happen. It's definitely still possible. We're only halfway through the lobbies for Group A. We've done 3 now, 2 Monday and 1 today. And in the next 3, they're really going to have to step it up if they want to try to take first place or even second place to keep going on.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as I remember for the point totals, because those 11 points, 10 points were just from this particular lobby, if we add that to their previous day one performances, I think VK still comes out on top because they only earned 1 less point than Team Liquid and LP. So right now, I do believe VK are still the ones to beat, closely followed by Liquid. And if we're talking about FCB's chances, no matter how slim though, I definitely have faith in particularly Blizes. I heard that even though he was a bit late to pick up BGs compared to the rest of the field, he hit 11k MMR very, very soon. That's a quick learner right there. And if his skills at Constructed are any indication, I think he's definitely picking up more and more knowledge with every single lobby.
Yeah, it definitely speaks volumes to how strong of a player he is, not only in Constructed, but I guess now in Battlegrounds as well, because I mentioned this earlier. I think 9 or 10K is already the top 1% or something of the player base, and for him to already reach and surpass that is actually insane in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that when we look at the entire Battlegrounds field, though, the Chinese players are no slouch with their MMR. I think we've seen a bunch of numbers at 13k and 14k. And personally, I think the consensus of the community is that if you reach 14k above, you're among the gods in Battlegrounds already, because I don't think a single player has reached 15k MMR just yet. But I completely expect somebody to be towards that number, and I would not be surprised at all if the first name came from one of these Chinese teams.
Yeah, certainly. I checked some of the stats from Monday as well, and I want to point out that I think Diana is by quite a bit of a margin the top points earner player so far, which is no surprise, having 2 first places and a second place. I believe this puts him at 25 points together for him for Team VK. And I think second place in terms of point earners is now W2I Bill, who has 21 points. So still fairly close. But I think these two are quite a bit farther ahead than any other player right now involved in Battlegrounds in either of the groups.
Yeah, and Witty Bill also has a very big stream of his own, just like Show. I think that Team Liquid, they probably have some of the most recognizable names, but we shouldn't sleep on Diana at all, even though we've already seen him take a bunch of wins. We've seen him perform very well in Constructed, I think as recently as Master on stream. So depending on, it doesn't seem to matter what game mode he's on, Diana will put the work in for Team VK. And over in Group B, I'm also really excited to see who can possibly stand out to him, because in terms of the entire team, I don't think anyone even outscales that total of 25.
Yeah, that's actually incredible. We've been talking up Nightwalk quite a bit, and even though we didn't quite see him succeed with the Khadgar brand strategy yesterday, he still was able to pull it off with Millhouse of all heroes, where it's difficult to get more roles to find the tools needed. So I'm curious to see if we're going to be seeing more of that from him tomorrow and beyond.
And second lobby already online, and for Show, he's actually on the Toki, which is a hero that I don't often see. The changes to the hero power have been back and forth. When it was first released, I think Toki was definitely one of the strongest. Where do you think it lands at in terms of power level now?
I think it would still be a reasonable tier B to A hero. It's still kind of decent. You can Tavern tier up to 4 relatively quickly, and then start hero powering to get Tavern tier 5 minions. And if you do happen to get something like a Baron, like a Brand, you can already start building a composition around that a bit faster than some other players. And if you are strong enough to go up to Tavern tier 5, every hero power gets you a Tavern tier 6 minion, which is still incredibly strong instead of having to Tavern tier up to 6 or getting a triple to find the Tavern tier 6 minions. Being able to just hero power and get a guaranteed one, even though it is a random one from Tavern tier 6, it's still pretty strong if you can make it that far.
And for Trunks here. A very interesting hero in the Bran as well. I think we do have a collection of pretty fun heroes. I see a Millhouse in the lobby as well, and the Dancing Daryl. But particularly with Bran, there is some shenanigans you can do if you stay on lower tavern tiers, as we've seen Trunks go for. So he could be fishing for triples because his hero power makes the refresh on the lobby give all battle cry minions. He could be looking for the Alley Cat triple. But there's also a Bran strategy where you stay on tier 2 and get Pogos online.
Yeah, I have not yet seen a successful Bran Pogo strategy, but it could be possible. I'm actually not sure what the banned minion type is this lobby. I think we've seen Beasts, Murlocs, and Demons so far. So it's either Mechs, Pirates, or Dragon. Nope, Dragons are in too. So Mechs or Pirates are not in this lobby. I'm not sure which one.
Fine. VK Kimmy already on the 5 gold turn, so next turn we can expect him to get his first golden minion. And oftentimes it is very telling for Eudora's overall chances if you get a great golden minion. There's so many that have a huge power spike. Salty Looter, crowd favorite, and anything digging into Gold Grubber can be winning already in the mid game.
Imp Gang Boss can be very powerful. It looks like mechs are out of the lobby with that pirate showing up, so we will not be seeing Pogos this lobby. Kimmy gets a Fiendish Servant from the dig. Not quite what comes to mind when we're thinking of powerful early game units, but it still does give him access to the Tavern Tier 4 minion from the reward.
Neither are these discovers particularly good, though. If you're looking for at least a tempo option, he would have much rather looked for a high main or an egg here. Between these, he might just end up taking the Rip Snarl because there was a pirate in the tavern for Bob.
Yeah, Rip Snarl Captain will definitely be an option here. Goes for Vermin Sensei, just wants the tempo now, thinking the other two will not be strong enough. Being down minions on board, with Kimmy only having 3, means that he will not be attacking first, so something like a Hydra might be a little ambitious at this point, and because of that, it looks like he is going just for a bigger minion to try and win rounds instead of picking something up to scale a bit more. Because if he does survive another 4 rounds, he gets another dig at that point. And he's already on Tavern Tier 3, so as long as he retains some health and is able to pick up some other Tavern Tier 3 units, he should still be in a good spot here.
Yeah, I do think that the Rafam also stole the wrong cat from the other side, because had he stolen cat, he would have hit a triple. But anyways, for Trunks here has a golden Selfless Hero, which I think is a very, very powerful endgame card when you already have a bunch of big minions to essentially let them get 2 attacks with their Divine Shields. But for now, though, it's a decent tempo option.
Trunks is staying on Tavern Tier 2 instead of Tavern Tiering up to 3, looking to try to find some more battle cries. Perhaps exactly that third Alley Cat is what he was looking for. With a crowd favorite that he got from tripling the Selfless Hero, the reward coming from that given the crowd favorite. Battle Cries will be very useful now, especially since he can hero power into them, because it can help him scale his board.
Yeah, crowd favorite definitely at its most powerful with either Bran or Millhouse. And speaking of Millhouse there, we did see a little bit of Dragon Synergy, which you'd kind of want to get for the late game, but it is the Daryl that has far more dragons at the moment, trying to rely on this Togwaggle to give him a big tempo spike in the mid game.
Yep. We see Daryl hasn't quite started dancing yet. PF here probably waiting to find some Tavern Tier 3 minions that he's looking for. Unfortunately, with mechs out, something like the Flectobot won't be able to be danced on, but there's still some pretty good options left in the pool. Something like a Bronze Warden could still be useful. Yoho Ogre early is still also very strong, having a lot of starting health at this point in the game, and buffing that a bit more to give it some attack can also be pretty powerful for a little bit.
I also think, though, that when Daryl has a good enough start like that, he's barely taken any damage, that he can end up playing like a normal hero and leveling a bit higher than you normally would if you go for the dance strategy. So there's room for flexibility, but we're back on the Bran here. I'm looking at the Magician because it's another battle cry that immediately affects his board.
Yep. Buff some Murloc and a Beast. No Dragon on the board yet. I'm curious. Is he going to hold it, or do you think he's going to play it just to get the buffs now?
Facing off against the Daryl, which hasn't taken very much damage, I think it would depend on if he saw the Daryl level this turn, but I would be inclined to play it right now.
Yep. I mean, it's a lot of stats, right? It's 8-8 right now compared to one of the cats you have on board, which is a 1-1. It's quite an improvement.
For show though, he ends up picking a Bronze Warden of his own, sells the Scallywag, which is really good in the early game alongside the Arcane Cannon, but now it's starting to lose its value. These two Kindly Grandmas, probably one of the worst 2-star minions to hold on to, but because it's a pair, I think Sho is giving it one more turn to look for the triple. If he doesn't find it though, I would not be surprised to see him swap those out for some higher tempo options.
Yep, definitely. Paired with the Arcane Cannon, it still helps a little bit. Having two pieces to the minion means that you can get twice the attacks off the cannon, but not when it gets sniped by the opponent's cannon immediately.
Cannon shenanigans. My least favorite parts of Battlegrounds, but that is just part of the game. The Rat, I don't think can carry this, especially since the first Wrathweaver is a little bit too far out.
Actually,
okay. Depending on where the 4-2 attacks.
Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
That was some crazy attack order at the end. Even with the cannon getting sniped off, Sho is able to barely get there with some fortunate attacks at the end.
And over on Diana's side, has just the one dragon, but he's already on Tavern 5, which you want to level with Millhouse pretty early if you can. But nothing good in this lobby, in this tavern.
Yeah, looks like he might be considering the Southsea Strongarm. He did sell off a minion here. This lets him buff up either the Ripsnarl Captain or the Scallywag. Probably the Ripsnarl Captain to help keep it alive a bit longer. Pirates is something you definitely could go, especially with Hoggar. If you have the discount on buying the minions, it does let you... It gives you a way to actually scale a comp while taking rolls. Even though you're Millhouse, getting the extra gold back from Pirates with Hoggar does allow you to get extra rolls in. So that does give you a way to normally play Millhouse that you can't always play him, where you get a lot more rolls in them instead of just buying everything you see that's good.
Over for PF, he has decided to dance on a Sorolisk, which is not ideal by any means, but at some point with Daryl, if you're not given a great Divine Shield option or a Yoho Ogre, sometimes you just have to settle for taking a pile of stats. And the awkward thing with Daryl is that on the dance turns, you often end up with not the full amount of minions on board, so this cannon might be getting a little bit less value for PF, which especially hurts when you're facing a Deathwing.
Yep, one of the benefits to the Sorolisk, even though it isn't the optimal type of unit you're looking to dance on, it can still scale a little bit by playing other death rattles. So if you do end up dancing on something else, and there are some death rattles in the tavern, once you isolate the minion, play the death rattles, sell them off for the buff, it does also buff the Sorolisk on top of giving hats to the units in the shop.
And he does still end up taking the win there. I'm a bit surprised because of that Rat Pack, but the cannon managed to hold on till the end, and of course that dance on the Sorolisk was too much defense to deal with. The Eudora down to 11 HP. That is not what Kimmy wanted to see. I think we're approaching his second dig completed though, so there's a chance to get a nice 6-star minion off the starter.
Yeah. And this is what we were talking about, missing a little bit on the useful Tavern Tier 4 minions from the reward, and just the first dig itself not being that powerful. Kimmy was trying to just hold on to get to the second dig and see what he can find that perhaps will catapult him further into the late game instead of falling behind now.
And
looks like he's not happy with the options. Yeah. The boat's still good.
As a tempo option.
Yeah, as a tempo option. Being at 11 health, I'm kind of skeptical to take a Megasaur and hoping to wait for some Murloc transition. I think it might be best to just throw down the boat and try to find some other powerful minions.
I would have to agree. I think Kimmy, based on his having the Sorolisk and the Hydra in the shop, was definitely looking for either Goldrinn or Mama Bear. Doesn't hit either of them, but I think you can still buy the Hydra here. This Draconid Enforcer is not doing anything since he has no Divine Shields in the comp. Wow, he actually passes it up. I was looking at the Hydra because he has Pack Leader.
The problem with Hydra with his board right now is that he has 2 Spawn Exhaust and a Fiendish Servant. A lot of minions that benefit when they die first, so you want them up front to die. But if you put the Hydra up front, the Hydra kind of loses buffs. The other buffs don't go off until after the Hydra attacks. It makes it a little bit more awkward. So even though Hydra is probably a stronger unit than some of these units, it's hard for him to kind of switch off all the first 3 units he has to try and pick it up. It would be, I think, a bit too awkward.
Well, we will be relying on this boat to give him some miracles. He froze a Baron in the tavern, which could make a huge difference for his comp because he has those 2 N'Zoths and this boat and the Fiendish Servant. If Kimmy can survive a little bit longer, he could see some signs of life. Over for PF, though, Daryl does end up taking a little bit of damage, but he's held on to some rats, probably not necessarily as a pair, but sometimes you take turns as Daryl to just buy 3 minions and then save those up for further hats on another minion the following turn.
Yep, you can kind of build up money in your hand, and then on a higher tavern tier, for example, like a Hydra, you can start buying more minions out in the shop and then dance over 2 turns to make it even bigger than you would be able to with just a 1-turn dance.
Diana with kind of a menagerie now. Any pivotal minions other than the Razor Core, I have to say. He spent a lot of gold refreshing there. Always feels bad as Millhouse, but I think he was looking for any sign of direction because his comp said, if you give me dragons, I'll go dragons. If you give me Light Fang, I'll go Light Fang. Or if you give me Primal Fin, I can work with that. But Bob was not really working with him here.
Yeah, and we see him picking up a crowd favorite here, realizing that he can't quite roll down to 0 gold this turn and not do anything. The crowd favorite at least lets him scale a little bit with some battle cries he picks up that might also end up buffing the other dragons, beasts, and murlocs on his side of the board.
Over on PF's side, another turn ended with not the full board, but he has now 2 relatively decent sized minions from the dancing. I think that'll be enough to carry him through the next couple combats, but with Daryl ultimately around 3rd or 2nd place is the best you can hope for.
Yep, we see Sho turning in a triple and giving him access now to a Tavern Tier 6 minion. He does not have the board for Megasaur. He does find an Amalgadon though, which gets some incredibly good adapts here with a dragon and a beast. And itself, it adapts 3 times. It gains health, Divine Shield, and Poisonous, which is Divine Shield Poisonous is exactly what you want on Murlocs. It's a late game comp, and having it on a minion that he just picked up is very powerful.
If I had to choose only 3 adapts to get, I think it would be exactly those 3.
Yeah, so definitely.
Good for Sho there. It probably won't be enough to deal with this board with the Barons picked up now by the Eudora player. The boat also looks very threatening.
Yeah, boat with Baron surviving is one of the most dangerous things ever because the pirates that come out of there can be so strong that you end up taking 20, 30 points of damage.
Okay. Well, the Baron did get sniped off before that, but Eliza is spawned, so
the Pagel
will be taking quite a bit of damage here. Yeah.
Oh, the Pagel, however, the chest that Pagel spawns will not be popped, so I think Sho's going to be safe here. He's taking some damage, but he's not out of it just yet.
Things are turning around for Kimmy on the Eudora though, but we're gonna take a look at what Trunks has to offer here. He's got some Murloc synergy, not yet on Tavern 5, so I'd struggle to say that this can turn into a Murloc comp for the late game, but because he has that crowd favorite Alley Cat and the Selfless Hero, 2 big triple here, especially since one of them has poison.
And it's kind of important. He has to figure out if he wants to take the triple now and go for Tavern Tier 5 minion, which can start scaling him with either Bran, Bagurgle, maybe a Primal Flame Lookout can get him another Murloc, or if he wants to save it for a Tavern Tier 6 minion after he Tavern Tiers up next turn so that he can find maybe a bigger buff like a Megasaur or maybe an Amalgadon. It looks like he will go for the Tavern Tier 5 minion by not freezing and picking the triple up this turn.
And over on Diana's side, there's a Kalecgos, which you often really are happy to see as Millhouse, but he's down to his last 7 health, deciding whether he has the time to even scale, and he takes the tempo option instead. It hurts to do that, but he realizes he is just looking to hang on for as long as possible now. I think in a position where he's super far ahead, at least in terms of points, I think this decision also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. When you're at 7 health, you can't really be taking greedy plays at this point. Diana was a couple turns ago looking for something bigger to grab onto, like we talked about, maybe a Kalecgos, maybe another Razor Gore, Goldrin, but without those options, he does have to eventually say, okay, we didn't hit, we need to figure out how to kind of control the damage we're going to be taking and make sure we survive as long as possible, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Gave it his best shot, but it's still looking very rough for him. The dragons for the Maiev player have scaled a lot, and half of death rattles from the Coiler have been pretty lackluster. So I think this will be it for Diana, depending on where these last couple trades go.
No, the way these trades popped out, never count out a gas queller with a boat, but unfortunately boat was not revealed from the gas queller. So Diana does take his first, I think, bottom 4 so far.
Going to be up to his teammate now to make sure that they keep the lead they have.
Nope.
Kimmy on the Eudora is going to have... Oh, wow. He actually lost already. I didn't notice that. I
think Kimmy got knocked out this turn as well, yeah. rough game for VK, but they have quite a lead. So I think this was it gives them quite a bit of a safety net for a game like this, where they might not be able to perform as well as they did in the first three.
And Show
Now the other
with a
teams actually have a
mishmash.
chance
Yeah.
to start getting ahead.
Indeed. Show with a complete mishmash of minions here. I feel like this would look like a Light Fang type comp, but he has not hit it. The Eliza, probably not the 6-star he was hoping to triple into, but you take it as a tempo option every now and then. Okay.
Interesting. I think PF here is going up against his teammate Trunks and realizes that he's not going to be able to get farther on in this lobby. So even though he might be able to beat his teammate here, he believes his teammate might have a better option to scale farther into this game. And he sells down to 4 units here. The reason you sell down to 4 units here is because I believe in the rules, after 10 gold, if you're left with 3 minions left on the board, you will disqualify yourself. So he sticks down to 4 minions, accepting the loss here so that his teammate Trunks could potentially go farther in this game.
That's a very good catch. I think a pretty cool strategy as well. Sometimes you can't avoid the team kills in situations like this, but when they both be low health, it makes complete sense to just give the guaranteed win over to your teammate if they have a better chance at taking first in the lobby. It sucks to have to end in potentially 6th place, but I think overall that's a great big picture spot. Show, however, has somehow already transitioned into Murlocs, has hit the Poisonous, just needs to look for Divine Shield now, but he's sitting on a brand, so if he doesn't die here, there's a good chance, but looks like he's gonna die here.
That's a big if, Gia.
Yep.
Especially with a Rat Pack
down to
left
10.
over at the end. Yeah, I think this is the end of Bly's this round.
So it looks like there's a lot of people that will be knocked out in this particular combat.
Yep.
And that's kind of a relief from the from Show's perspective to knock out the Murloc player right before they hit that last piece of the puzzle to become unstoppable. So now I think Show can realize he's probably one of the biggest threats in the lobby right now.
Yeah, definitely. There's still a couple of comps left that have 1 or 2 or 3 Murlocs that are still trying to do menagerie or battle cry-y things. But that's much less concerning than having a full board of Poisonous Divine Shields. Having just a couple of Poisonous Murlocs to deal with is still kind of manageable if you have a board full of units that can start scaling, or Divine Shield, for example, that can kill the Poisonous Murloc without taking damage itself.
And for Trunks here, he has a very cool comp, which I think is just making do with what he was given. He has some threatening minions, especially the poisonous ones, and paired with the Selfless Hero actually makes them very, very threatening. So I think Trunks will be looking to pick up a Baron here to replace the spot where there's a Vermin Sensei at the moment.
Yeah, without having access to something like a Megasaur, being able to make a sort of janky Divine Shield build on top of some Poisonous Murlocs you already have can definitely be one way to squeak another victory in.
As for Show, though, he has a group of very powerful Divine Shield minions and some tempo options in his 6 stars with Mayaxa and the Gas Coiler. The Rat Pack has been held on to for this long now. I think that this is also a very valid way to play Toki, as you were mentioning. Just stay on 5 and then pick up whatever 6 stars you can to best suit your next combat. And if that's enough to take you into top 4, I think you can be very happy with that as a Toki player.
Yeah, definitely. And we're talking about the strategy that some of these heroes can take based on what's available in the lobby. But again, with the point system being the way it is, where you actually do get points for every single placement, obviously from 9 from in first place down to 1 in 8th place, you can just try to go for top 3, top 4 strategies, and it can work very well if both you and your teammate are consistently doing something like that.
Oh, and it's going to be such a close fight here, but Show will end up falling to that Razor Gore surviving at the very end there. Maiev player, definitely a favorite to take the lobby because they've had that big dragon scaling. They have the Nadina. They have ways to keep going at it.
Wait, did the lobby just end?
I'm not sure.
So normally, if there's an odd number of players left, actually if there's exactly 3 players left in a lobby, technically if the first place person kills one of the other 2 and the third person who's facing the ghost also loses and dies to the ghost, the lobby can end that way. but I'm not
Right.
quite sure if that happened here. I think there were still 4 people left in the lobby, so perhaps there was some sort of connection issue.
I would have to assume so. It's very, very unlikely that they would all die at the same point there, if it was an even number of people. So I expect to see some ruling on that coming in a bit later. But we can talk about what we witnessed so far, which I do think, even though this coverage ended a bit prematurely to what we expect, we could pretty much assume that the Mayev was going to end up taking the win there, huh?
Yeah, they may have had a pretty strong board there at the end compared to what all the other players had. And when you can't find a strong enough early game that can catapult you to a point where you can Tavern Tier up and find those build-defining minions, what you tend to do is just pick up strong units and start to slowly scale those with what's available. And we saw some of the players doing that where I forget quite which player it was, but we were discussing about him right at the end, where he had a couple Divine Shield Murlocs. He had the Selfless Hero that was upgraded, a Battle Master, and he was just trying to, and a crowd favorite. It was Brand Bronzebeard, actually, yes. And he was just trying to kind of scale his minion, even though it wouldn't be scaling as fast as one of the late game comps, for example. It still lets him get past some of the other players in the lobby who weren't able to find those builds. So being able to scale something earlier, even though you're not going for that, first or second place, still can get you a pretty decent finish in the lobby.
If it wasn't the Mayev, I think that maybe Trunks could have a small chance of being able to beat that, seeing as he did have those Murlocs and the Selfless Hero to give Divine Shield onto some of those. So if he had either hit a Megasaur in that period or found a Baron and got some very fortunate trades, I could see that possibly going in favor of him, but I do think it's very likely that Mayev took the win there. We're going to wait on some confirmation on how the point distribution actually works if a lobby finishes prematurely, but man, that's been so much action in just 2 lobbies. Battlegrounds, I will never get used to how much we have to go back and forth on each of these boards, but you know what? I love it.
Yeah, I mean the fast-paced action makes it a lot more exciting. Generally, having a bit of downtime after you spend all your 10 gold, when you're given 70 seconds in a turn, can be kind of boring, but being able to bounce back and forth and seeing all these different players' boards and have a lot more insight into what's going on is definitely a lot more exciting. Generally, when you're looking at the sidebar and seeing the other people in your lobbies, the heroes they have, it shows you, it'll say something like 5 Murlocs or 4 Beasts, and you have kind of an idea of what they're doing. But from our perspective, being actually able to see the board gives us so much more information than some of the players have access to, which makes it very exciting for us.
Yeah, we did get a glimpse of the graphic that said Bill won, but I'm hesitant to believe that's the result for this lobby. I think it might have been just leftovers from the first lobby. Looking over at some convenient math from Lorinda, though, I do think that with the results of FC Barcelona in this lobby, it's now impossible for them to actually take a win for the Battlegrounds portion, at least. So it's going to be up to them to kind of make up for it in Constructed, at least, and they will be playing in Constructed a little bit later today because we are going to have the second half of the bracket already. We have arranged people into the lower and upper portions because it is double elimination. So we're going to see who's going to move on to the final stages of Constructed. Are any teams you're looking out for in particular, Hacker?
For today in Group A, let me just pull up the website real quick. Right, so in Group A, we have the Team RNG versus IG, who are going to be playing in the winners portion of the bracket. The winner of that will immediately be going on to the semifinals later on this week. So we're guaranteed one of the Chinese teams moving forward. And because of this, we have FCB versus Team Liquid in the losers side of the bracket, which means that one of them is guaranteed to be knocked out. And the winner of that may still have the option to fight and try to get into those finals. I'm curious to see which of the international teams are going to be able to stay in the tournament, but I also want to see which of the Chinese teams are going to take the victory and be able to take the 2-0 match score in the group.
Well, sorry about that brief intermission here. It looks like we did get word on how the second lobby panned out, and Witty Bill actually did take the win. My mistake. I didn't think that he would win yet another one, but that is extremely impressive. Their Team Liquid with the 14 points, but notably, FCB Blythe managed to take a fifth there. Nothing to scoff at, especially since...
Yeah, definitely.
Zim on the second there. Wow, as well.
So with... Team Liquid getting 1st and 4th place there, and I believe VK getting 7th and 8th place. I believe that might catapult Liquid forward in the standings now, at least after these 4 initial lobbies. I my math's not good enough to quickly add all that up together, but I do think they have somewhere between a 4 and 6 point advantage now. So even though VK had an incredibly strong start yesterday, and even with VK Diana still taking first place in the first lobby today, it looks like Team Liquid's consistency between WTY Bill and Show have still managed to secure them first place, at least for now.
We did get word that there happened to be a disconnect, and so I think altered to what positions were able to be gained despite that disconnect. And it did have Bill on the top there and the FCB players at top 4 positions, 2nd and 4th respectively. So that's pretty big as well. But as you mentioned, it's really all about Liquid right now, because despite VK having the game winning purposes in day 1, Liquid was hot in their trails with consistent top 4s or even just around 5th place, 6th place, and not really falling to 7th and 8th means that a big win has indeed leapfrogged them to first place so far. I'm just not sure if it's VK or LP that would be in the 2nd place there.
Yep, sure. And I want to keep emphasizing the fact that all these points, the point distribution, giving more points for who is higher up, is kind of really nice, because we have teams being rewarded for their consistency if they're able to consistently get the top 4 placement. But it also rewards being able to take a risk and going for first place in these lobbies, like we've seen Diana doing, I think 3 times now out of the 4 lobbies.
Yeah, and it does look like tentatively we have Team Liquid at first place with 48 points, followed by K and then LP at 39 and 37 respectively. So a very small gap between them. And then FCB now at 24. They are at half of the top team's point earnings, so I still think it's going to be really tough for FCB to have a shot at making it. But given the difference that one single lobby can make, maybe I called it too soon that they don't have a chance.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, again, the math's kind of hard to figure out, but I think with maybe a 1st and 2nd place in both of the remaining lobbies in 2 days from now, they might still be able to squeak into 2nd place. But I'm not actually even. It really depends on how many points Team Liquid and Team LP can actually get, because they're Team LP and Team VK can get, because they're pretty close together, and they'll be fighting for 2nd place as it currently stands if Team Liquid doesn't continue getting this consistent performances.
We did get the official confirmation that these are the standings now. From what I can see, though, Team Liquid is looking pretty much unstoppable. Both Show and Witty Bill putting in a lot of work, but I have to say, Witty Bill, an extreme MVP for today. Double first place is much like how Diana went for it in day 1.
Yeah, pretty strong showing. And I think now that I'm thinking about it a bit more, if FCB does get 1st and 2nd place, both in the next 2 lobbies, and either VK or Team LP gets 7th and 8th place, I believe FCB can get into 2nd place. I'm not sure if it's possible for them to get 1st from this point, but if they can give us like an incredibly powerful showing on the last day with the 2 lobbies remaining, they might have a chance to get in 2nd place.
And you love to hear that there's still stuff on the line all the way up until the end, though. It's going to have to be a very specific set of outcomes, but I would be remiss to call out players like Blizes and Zim too early. So that will just be the end of the Battlegrounds portion for today, and also the end of the preliminary lobbies for Group A. With only 2 lobbies left, Hacker, are there any names that particularly stood out to you?
Definitely. So after day 1, I thought it was all going to be about VK Diana. And even after the first lobby today, with another first place finish, it was just an incredible performance. But with WTY Bill and Show's consistency across the first 4 lobbies, even though they haven't been getting as many first places as VK Diana, they've still been doing incredibly strong, having very consistent top 4 finishes.
Yes, and I am super curious now if Witty Bill's 4 lobbies is higher than Diana's now. Now that Diana took an 8th place, maybe he's already been overtaken in terms of the individual MVP players, but we're going to have to learn about that a little bit later on. Tomorrow, I also have very high hopes for how the 3rd and 4th lobbies for Group B go as well, because that's one where maybe the Chinese players were underperforming a bit compared to what we were expecting, but just the same as how it around today, maybe we're going to see Team WE take us by surprise tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. And another reminder, the point differential between the 4 teams in Group B, between Team 1, G2, Team World Elite, and Team Sunning. We're very, very close. The spread is in fourth place, Team SN had 16 points, and in first place, T1 had 21 points. So it's a much closer ball game in Group B. So it could definitely go anyone's way based on the outcome of the next 4 lobbies.
Indeed. So that will just be wrapping up the Battlegrounds portion of the day. And we will be moving on to Constructed now, where another set of players will have to face off for qualification into the semifinals or their chance to even stay in the tournament. So before I send you off for a break, Hacker, any last words about Construct get in there?
I don't want to give a spoiler, but I feel like we're going to have a blast casting, or maybe I won't be having a blast, but I feel like you'll be having a blast and a lot to look forward to into the next match that's coming up.
Yes, Constructed is definitely a different ballpark than what you might normally see from Hearthstone Esports recently, because this is not just LHS, but all 10 classes have to be brought and 4 of them banned away. And if we're talking about when the most popular decks are banned away, you're thinking War Demon Hunter, and there's a certain class in there that might sneak in unrespected but can take sweeps when left up, and it's a particular class that also has mirror matches that certain casters love to hate or hate to love. So you guys can look forward to that very soon, and please don't go anywhere. We will be right back.